Hello everyone, TFC328 here, and it's not about what you do differently, it's about what you do well. Today, we're going to look at a very important chapter in the Mega Man saga, Mega Man X5. The game that was intended to close the X series had a lot of interesting elements that make it worth discussing, both good and bad. Not many people say this game is bad as a whole, but following the highly adored X4 and being followed up by obvious cash grab and Mega Man's equivalent to Sonic 06 does it no favors. So let's take a closer look, shall we? We start with the option to pick between X or 0, just like in X4. Unlike X4, you can actually play as both characters on one save file, and I personally love to alternate between the two during my runs, but for the opening stage I'll pick X. I'll explain why in a minute. The opening cutscene shows Sigma and a new character named Dynamo discussing their plans about a colony and a virus. We then open with, "Oh sweet Ruckloid Jesus, X actually kept his armor! I can't wait to abuse the helmet part's infinite weapon ammo!" It's also here where we get introduced to Alia, the Maverick Hunter's navigator, and one of the most disliked characters in the series. Now, I don't hate Alia, but she makes a terrible first impression. All she ever does in this game is grind the gameplay pacing to a screeching halt to inform you of the most obvious of gameplay information any player could figure out on their own. It's one thing to let us know of stage-exclusive gimmicks, but I think I can see that the ceiling is going to fall and that I should avoid getting hit by it. The X series has gained a reputation for teaching the player by example rather than by explanation, and this is just obnoxious. Yes, you can mash buttons to skip the dialogue as fast as possible, but the game still stops for a moment, taking you out of the experience, and that's where her biggest problem lies. Thankfully, the later games made listening to her mostly optional, but this is X5, and she needs a mute button. Anyways, X plays like he did in the past games, jumping, shooting, dashing, but with one significant addition. One that took us 9 classic games, 4 X games, and even a few Legends games to finally implement. You can finally duck! I don't know why the Mega Man games lacked such a simple feature for so long, but they finally added it, and while not the greatest revolution the franchise has ever seen, it brings just that bit more flavor to the gameplay that helps sweeten the deal. There are multiple moments where ducking is taken advantage of, and it works. The only problem is that it didn't last. Only X6 and X7 retained it, and no other Mega Man game let you duck. Unless you want to be picky and bring up the human forms in the ZX games. Anyways, after X makes it through the rest of the level, X sees Zero teleport in with a broken Buster arm. Now here's why I picked X. You lose something by picking one or the other. Picking Zero has X lose the X4 armor, and picking X has Zero loses Buster. The problem is that Zero's Buster fires very slowly, doesn't cover the whole screen, can't be fired repeatedly, and doesn't even do that much damage to enemies. Not to mention, Zero's emphasis on close-range combat makes this a complete waste of programming. And since trying to keep this results in losing the much more useful X4 armor, I think it's clear how 95% of X5 playthroughs start out. Zero only in minimalist runs notwithstanding. Then the Statue of Liberty looking graphic starts exploding and reveals a freaky Sigma head. Yeah, Sigma's the intro boss. He's not much harder than the various mechanoids that served as the previous X-series intro bosses, especially if you remembered how to duck. This isn't Vile after all. However, Sigma lost on purpose to spread the Maverick virus across the world, harming many innocent humans and turning many Ripblade's Maverick. What's worse, the space colony Eurasia is on a collision course with Earth, and will crash in 16 hours. Wait. A space colony that's about to crash into Earth with the intent to destroy all life. Sounds familiar. In fact, the entire premise of the game revolving around a doomsday countdown that must be stopped by collecting 4 important objects is vaguely similar to Majora's Mask in a sense. Sure, the atmosphere of X5 is nowhere near that game's levels, but it does create a darker and more intense feel to the whole game. I get invested in it every time. Anyways, we have our 8 bosses, and to address the elephant in the room, they're all named after members of the band Guns N' Roses. Honestly, some of them work for me, like Grizzly Slash and Easy Glow, but others not so much. Everyone gets hung up on Duff McWhalen, but everyone seems to forget that one of them was seriously called Matt Rex. Say what you will about McWhalen, at least that was trying, albeit trying too hard, but Mavericks is just lazy and stupid. It's interesting to note that Mega Man is known for its musical references, but those were mostly in the classic series, and even then, it was mostly references to overarching terms like instruments or genres. References this specific are the kind you'd find in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure as opposed to Mega Man. And we have Claire Redfield's husband to thank for them. Still, Matt Rex? Moving on, most people take on Grizzly Slash first, so we'll do the same. It's a high-speed train level reflecting Grizzly's illegal cargo shippings, though Slash Beast comes to mind as well. In fact, most of X4's level motifs are reused, but it's in this stage where it's most obvious. The level is rather self-explanatory, and it even just hands you an ever-helpful subtag. Right before the boss, we find our first Dr. Light capsule, and one of the more questionable choices in the game. Due to the severity of the situation, Dr. Light made it so that the armor parts can't be used individually, and can only work when all 4 parts are completed. There are 2 armor sets in the game to collect, so I suppose this is to save on dev time so they don't have to program different armor combos, but this takes away from that getting progressively stronger feel that obtaining the armors in X1 through X4 gave. I can live with it, but I understand why this is a problem. Regardless, Grizzly himself isn't too difficult. He slices a few crescents in an upward angle and jumps for a suspended time frame. Halfway through he'll start burrowing underground, but he's still slow enough to see coming, and even novices will have no problem beating him. Grizzly hands you the crystal ball for the Enigma cannon, as well as the C-shot, which fires crescents in random directions, and the C-sword, which replaces Zero's aerial attack with a giant spinning slash that has as much reach as you'd imagine, and it wrecks most enemies and even bosses. Zero also gets to double jump now. And no, the head part of the 4th armor does not allow infinite weapon energy in this game. A shame, but then again, if it did, no one would use the other armors. A brief cutscene from Dynamo later, we get to check out Duff McWhalen's stage, which is a drag because it's an auto-scrolling level with a giant mini-boss at the end of the screen at most times. The only time it's not is one of the most annoying mandatory backtracking moments, since McWhalen's weapon is the only one that can hit that bomb. Sure, some of the other games did that, but I don't like it. It's not fun. It's bullshit. I do not like it. I do not. Oh, hi, Duff. McWhalen himself is one of the harder bosses, if only because of his desperation boot, where he shoots those ice blocks in an attempt to crush you into the instant death spikes. It's avoidable though, and he gives you hydrogen for the Enigma, as well as the Goo Shaver, which is kind of like the Search Snake from Mega Man 3, and F-Splasher, which gives Zero an attack aura whenever he air dashes, also giving Zero slight mid-air dash control. Now on to... wait, Dynamo's calling for a fight. I can't do anything but fight him, and he's nothing to write home about, as he's really easy and serves as just a time waster, gameplay and story-wise. Next up is Squid Adler. Seriously, this is one of the worst beginner's traps that has ever been conceived. Dying because the game expected you to know that you could control the ride chaser before Ready vanishes? Well, F you too. Not like the actual section is that much better, as you have to collect all 8 of these neutron-looking things before you complete the course if you want to get the armor part for this stage. And it's not easy to accomplish. It's almost insultingly easy to screw up in this section, even when you're just trying to reach the end. It's doable, but hardly fun. In fact, I think we need an unfair capsule counter. The rest of the stage is just annoying, since you have to hit switches multiple times in order to open a door or 2. It gets repetitive fast, but by then you'll meet up with Adler. He's not too bad either. Electric beams, electrifying the floor, blocks that can also be electric, it's really not as crazy as it looks. Beating Adler gets us the energy card for the Enigma, as well as the Tri-Thunder, which is just the Thunder Beam from Mega Man 1, and the E-Blade, the electric version of Zero's signature Ryo-Agent technique. And now Izzy Glow. Spiked chandeliers, rotating staircases, and big red buttons that break with Grizzly's weapons, which gets us the last piece of the Falcon armor. Well, unless you didn't backtrack from McWhalen's piece. Izzy Glow just teleports around and occasionally fires a homing missile or a screen-reaching green laser. Izzy then gets us the laser device for the Enigma, as well as the F-Laser, the homing missile, and the C-Flasher, Zero's Giga Attack that sounds like something lewd. With all the parts needed to make it work, the Enigma is automatically fired at Eurasia. This can end in one of 2 ways. Either the Enigma actually succeeds in destroying Eurasia and you can skip to the final stages, or the Enigma merely delays the inevitable and forces the last option. A shuttle that must be piloted by Zero, requiring the last 4 bosses to be defeated. Well, not exactly. You see, you can actually fire the Enigma as soon as you first enter the stage select screen, and it's possible to destroy Eurasia and completely ignore the main bosses. Why? It's all luck-based. In fact, the chances of the Enigma destroying Eurasia before the 8 bosses are down, even though the chances are increased with the needed parts, are absurdly low. The shuttle can also fail, and if it does, Since Zero's the only one who can pilot it and the autopilot went to shit, Zero becomes Maverick and you lose him for the rest of that save file. But once again, that's luck-based. You could just boot up the game and get right to the last levels with all of your options intact, or you could do everything else right and still lose Zero. Well, it's worth replaying this game to see how differently the events unfold, since there are 3 different endings. To have which ending you get determined by Anna the random number goddess is unneeded. I understand that it's more realistic, as you can have everything go right and still fail the main objective, but not by an unseen slot machine. Ah well, let's try out that new Falcon Armor and Dark Dizzy stage. It's a neat space museum stage with constellations that drop instant depth spikes and a moving platform that leads into another out in the open sub-tank. The next segment involves flipping the level around. It's not too bad. What is bad is the Dr. Light capsule. You have no idea how frustrating it is to navigate a rather fast-moving projectile between tight spaces where one wrong move will, I repeat, will cause you to fail and try again. You will not get this on your first try, especially on the GameCube X Collection version. This D-pad was not made for precision. There's a reason they give you weapon energy and a couple instant death spikes to try again. This is also a good time to mention that continues simply put you back at the last checkpoint rather than at the start of the stage, making lives pointless really, and making the entire game one of the easiest in the franchise. Still, that's definitely going on the counter, especially considering the part in question has no known effect. Dizzy attacks using bats and giant sonic waves. He may stop time a la Flashman or suck you dry a la Shademan, but he's a cinch to beat. He then gives the fuel tank for the shuttle and the Darkhold, which, as I said, stops time a la Flash Stopper. Now for the Spiral Pegasion. His stage involves destroying bombs before they blow, a slow as elevator that gives the weapon tank, and a Dr. Light capsule hidden in a way that only the Falcon Armor can access. That still counts. Pegasion is basically Storm Eagle, but with less wind and more knockback abuse. I fucking hate knockback, but a good will help with that. Pegasion drops the orbital wing for the shuttle, as well as the wing spiral, which is a wind-based Shoryuken, and W Shredder. The worst technique Zero has ever had, since it outright prevents Zero from using one of his best exploits, the slash-dash cancel combo, where you can just mash the dash and attack buttons when grounded to let Zero shred boss health and even tougher enemies much more effectively than the W Shredder ever could. Either way, we got it, and it can be used to wreck Dynamo even more, as Pegasion's weapons are his weakness. After kicking Dynamo out of the plot, and out of the series save for a quick cameo in X6, which is a shame, I would have liked to have seen him in future entries, we get to visit Burn Dynarex's stage. The big gimmick of this stage is instant kill lava. It fires out at you, with these dark patches being your only salvation. You have to platform over it while managing a Pteranodon mechanoloid, and even play a right armor segment entirely in said lava. Getting the capsule is at the end of the stage, and it can be obtained by either good timing in Zero's double jump or the Falcon Armor. It's a pain without the Falcon Armor though, so add that to the counter. Dynarex is also all about contact damage, but he spits fire as well. He also gets to carpet the floor with fire when he gets desperate. He drops a booster engine for the shuttle, as well as the ground fire, a ball of fire that shoots little fires in random directions, and the Quake Blazer, the fire equivalent to Zero's Frost Walrus technique from X4. Last on our chopping block is Axel the Red, who is in no way connected to the Axel that appears in X7 and X8. The stage likes to use ropes that you hang onto by holding up when near them, but the stage itself isn't much else if you can do that, as all that's left is the capsule only the Falcon Armor can reach. Actually, Axel reminds me of something.
Thank you. Very
interesting indeed. Anywho, Axel pulls Gemini Man's trick, as well as giant spike balls, energy draining whips, and a rain of roses when he's desperate. Almost like Woodman's leaves. He gives the orbiter engine for the shuttle, as well as the creatively named Spike Ball and Twin Dream, which is basically a slightly better version of X4's Soul Body. So the shuttle is launched and Zero either survives or becomes Maverick. Did I also forget to mention that anything Zero picked up like heart tanks are gone along with him? Moving on, the final stages are interesting to say the least. The first one features, what the f? Yep, instant kill lasers, just like Quickman from Mega Man 2. Darkhold is here for a reason. After that we see... oh god. Oh god!
No! God, please, no!
Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the Shadow Devil, and it's one of the hardest bosses in the series. Its pattern is random, yet predictable. Attacks are easy to evade, but they hurt like a son of a bitch. It's weak to the Tri-Thunder Beam, but it leaves behind an instant kill green outline when it reforms. Oh, and it turns into Wily Machine 6 when it gets desperate. But with the fact that the boss can only be damaged when its eye is open, the battle can vary from absurdly difficult to the most tedious boss decided to ease that. Not helping matters is the intense remix playing in the background, which will likely loop about 100 times by the time you beat this thing. It can be beaten, and sure enough, I did it. The next stage is vaguely reminiscent of Sigma Palace 1 from Mega Man X1. It's got platforms, vertical shafts, and a giant face on a wall for a boss. Typical stuff, really. Actually, wouldn't it have made sense to bring Vile back in this game? And on this stage in particular? If this was intended to be the finale, and Vile had proven recognizable enough for a comeback before, why not have such an iconic character appear as a boss, even as a data recreation or something? It would also bookend that getting stronger angle the series is known for, giving Vile's well-known forced loss battle. Whatever. The face boss has one nasty trick up its non-existent sleeve: instant death spikes. It's for those alone that I almost always bring the Gaia armor to this stage. Oh yeah, the armors! I should bring them up, shouldn't I? The Falcon armor, as you've probably seen by this point, allows X to fly for 3 seconds, and its charge shot can pierce shields. But he can't air dash with it, nor can he charge the boss weapons with it. Great for mobility. The Gaia armor, meanwhile, is slower, has no air dash whatsoever, his buster shots are now limited in range, and doesn't even have access to any of the boss weapons. The Gaia armor removes one of Mega Man's defining features. This should piss me off more than it is, but there's a few reasons why it doesn't. 1. I rarely use the weapons anyways. I stuck to the X-Buster and Z-Saber even since my first playthrough, and they hardly did any better against the bosses considering they have less invulnerability frames if they aren't hit by their weaknesses. 2. X's Buster may not go full screen, but the shots are more powerful, and there's only one level of charge, so if you leave auto charge on, you can spam charge shots left and right, and they're really powerful. And 3, it finally allows X to be immune to instant death spikes. Great for combat, defense, and of course, getting around tricky death spike littered areas. The next stage isn't much to note except for here. Down this wall is an invisible wall that holds another capsule that will only be there if you're playing as an unarmored X. Who would have figured that one out without some outside help? Just add it to the counter. Actually, this one kinda needed to be hidden, as it holds the ultimate armor for X. It functions just like it did in X4, spammable Nova Strike and all. The only issue? X doesn't equip it automatically. He needs to leave the stage in order to do so. Why? Because of that parts system, of course. If X didn't install any of the armor parts before, why should he now? Zero can also reach this capsule, but he instead gets a black color scheme that doubles his defense and attack power, and gives him a Mace Windu Saber. This is one of only 2 times both of these can be accessed without cheat codes, the other being X8, and it's also possible to have both on one save file if you get game over and return to the stage select screen once you got it. Nice! At the end of the stage is, let's be real here, one of the coolest moments in the franchise. Having been built up since X3, X and Zero finally battle each other. Again. The fight itself isn't very hard no matter which of the 3 variations you're playing, but the scenario, the feel during gameplay, and the music are all fantastic. This moment has been immortalized thanks to awesome fan remixes, awesome fan animations, awesome fan remixes accompanying awesome fan animations. It's all great. There's even attention to detail here. When the battle is over, the character you're playing as will note that they didn't expect the opponent to use Soul Body. X uses a variation of Soul Body in his fight, but if you pay attention during the winning explosion, you can see and even hear Soul Body being fired at the player character no matter which variation you're playing. It's the little things like that that really do add to the experience. No matter how the fight went, Sigma tries to off X since he's open to attack, but Zero stands between them and Sigma flees into the last level of the game. There's 2 things to note about this last level. 1, the boss rematches, where their health bars suddenly stretch to the height of the screen. But all that does is drag these fights out for a notably longer time before bada bang bada boom I took you all to hell. And 2, spontaneous reappearing disappearing blocks. Don't worry, they're in an easy enough to read pattern that they should provide little challenge before the final boss fight with Sigma. He hurts and he acts fast, but he has some odd blind spots and he's often open to attack. But if Power Ranger Sigma wasn't hard enough for you, get ready to face off against pre-rendered Sigma! Actually, this fight is kinda tough, since he often turns his body into a wireframe, making him invulnerable to attack. The hands can be annoying to deal with, and when he gets desperate, those purple blocks are devastating. Did I mention that dying at this fight means you have to face Form 1 again? Try not to use your sub-tanks until you're certain you're a few hits away from taking him down. Then again, with that continue system, it's less of a matter of if you have the skill to do it, but a matter of if you have the patience to keep trying. The ending can go in one of three ways. If Zero went Maverick, X is repaired by a mysteriously obvious Dr. Light hologram, albeit without any recollection of Zero, and with a desire to create a utopia for humans and Reploids. Maybe this was trying to set up Neo Arcadia from the Zero series, but I doubt it. If Zero didn't go Maverick, Zero is dying and Sigma blasts a hole into both X and Zero. With his dying breath, Zero finishes Sigma off once and for all, except not really, and feels that X should live, contemplating what little he knows about his past and believing that, so long as he still lived, peace could not be attained. Meanwhile, X is repaired by the mysteriously obvious Dr. Light hologram, though this time retaining his memory of Zero, and 3 years later, X is up and ready to fight for everlasting peace, keeping Zero's saber as a keepsake. If I'm gonna be honest, this is my favorite ending of the franchise. It tied up as many loose ends as needed and gave perfect closure to the story and characters we'd seen throughout the years. Until this piece of shit happened, but that's for another time. Not anytime soon though, as this review is draining enough. And that was Mega Man X5, and that was a lot to cover, but honestly, it was worth it. As I said, Alien needed to stop butting in every half a minute, the difficulty is simultaneously forgiving and schizophrenic, the way obtaining armor parts was handled is bullshit, the plot can get a bit wordy for some, much like this review, and pure luck should not determine how the last levels play out. With that said, the atmosphere is deservedly dark, the graphics still hold up, the control is as precise as it ever was, the levels are fun to play in for the most part, the callbacks are a nice touch and help accentuate the finale feel, the armors were great, the music's fantastic, and the setting provided some of the most memorable moments in the series, if not the franchise as a whole. For me, the positives more than outweigh the negatives, and as a result, it's my favorite game in the X series, if not my favorite Mega Man game period. Not everyone will love it, but if you want to give it a shot, it's $6 on PSN, or you can pick up the Mega Man X collection and get it alongside some guaranteed gems like X1, X2, and X4. I'm Transformers Fanco328, and even after all of that, I still gotta sort through X's closet.